Marshall in the middle.
Welcome back to another edition of the NBC Room. How you guys doing tonight, man? How are y'all doing tonight?
Good,
I
dude.
love you, Ray. Love you, Ray. Thank you for hosting this, man. This is so much fun. We've been
Yeah,
just chatting it up for
yeah,
like almost 30 minutes now, just
yeah,
getting ready
yeah,
for this. You're out
yeah.
in a remote environment, out in the mountains of
Hey,
Maine, right? Is
like
that
I'm
where you're
like I'm
at? You're
still
in
in. I'm
Maine.
st- I'm still I'm suited and booted, man. They called me back, man.
You
They
go,
called me back.
man.
I gotta get to it.
I
But
love
nah,
it.
man. We here with Nate Dogg in the house, and we here with Will. Yeah, we about to take it on. We got some good topics for you guys tonight. Um, be, we seen a lot of people watching last week, and nobody commented. But if you guys watching tonight, man, come on in and voice your opinion. And maybe even if you want to come on and speak your piece, man, say it, and we'll bring you on and we'll talk and we'll discuss it tonight. As we all know, we have a situation in Iran still. We do have a temporary ceasefire, but before we dig into this, man, what about our boys in that rescue, man? I mean, my God, the absolute power of the United States military is amazing. As an American, as a patriot, I feel good waking up in the morning and knowing that our boys are as capable as they are. I mean, the things that we just did was unprecedented. Not to mention what we've been doing, right? But what we just did. And I can only imagine as a soldier, as a former combat arms guy, I know it must feel good to know that you have an administration that will stop at nothing to take care of you. Unlike some of these past administrations where they leave you out there to dry. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Leave you out there to dry. They stopped at nothing to get our boys back in the middle of harm's territory. I'm waiting for the movie now. You know what you guys think, man?
It's coming. They're going to have a movie out. As a matter of fact,
Oh
Monday
yeah,
morning, Will and I were just talking about that same exact thing. They're
yeah,
going to make a movie out of this. They have to, man. I can't see, and I bet you it'll come
yeah,
out. I bet you they'll start filming this within a year.
yeah,
I'd give it about
yeah,
a year and a half. You're going to see it on Netflix, man. It's
yeah,
going to be a good
yeah.
one too.
Isn't it amazing how you have so many people in here that were rooting against us? They're rooting against us picking our guy up. Like I seen so many social media posts. Oh, I hope they capture him. Oh, Iranian heroes, they knocked him out. Oh, America's done for. You see that? What happened to the no air defense? What you say, Top?
So look, we have messed up the American. Um, we've messed up what it is to be American. We've and I feel it from the inside, right? I fought for our country, and in that at least I was willing to give my life. I never shot my rifle at another human being. I was never put in that situation, but I tell you what I would have done if I'd have been in a situation. I would have defended my men and women that served with me.
Right.
I would have done anything to have saved them. And if that meant shooting somebody else that was attacking us, I'd have shot that motherfucker dead in a heartbeat. I
Yeah.
guarantee it.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
but that's way different than being an American or even being patriotic. That's just protecting. That's just being a mother hen.
Right.
That's kind of thing. I'll tell you what. One of the things I'm proud of. I'm proud that our president has stood recently for strength in our world community and said, if you don't do this, you're going to see really, really, really bad things, to the
Right.
point where they said, okay, 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 don't
Right.
blow us up no more.
Right. Right.
And I look, people were like, he said such mean words. I was like, well, I'd rather him say mean words than just blow the
Man,
shit out of me.
the funny irony about the mean word argument and these guys talking about war crimes. I forgot to pull something on that up. But the reality of it is It's all because they hate Trump. When Zelensky was blowing up bridges, he's a war hero. When Trump threatens to blow up power plants and bridges, he's a war criminal. I don't understand how the double-mindedness, the insufferability to make up in their mind a decision and their outlook and just stick with it. It's just like no matter what facts is brought to them, no matter what you tell them or show them, look, anything used as a military strategic asset is now on the table. And these same jokers are the ones trying to get their own citizens to line up, lock arms across bridges, and line around, put children around power plants so we can have some kind of mass atrocity. And it's like, what are we doing? What you say? What you say, Nate?
Man, 7:30 last night, every network that hates Trump, which is pretty much 90, I'd say about 91, 92% of the networks hate Trump, and we all know that. But
Right.
every one of them, to include certain politicians, got on there, man, on the TV, and they're just like, he's a madman. We're going to give him the 25th Amendment. He needs to be impeached immediately. Fast forward an hour later at 8:30 p.m. last night, he's a chicken.
He's a coward.
Chicken shit.
Taco
He
Trump.
backed down. He caved. I can't make this shit up, man.
It's nonstop. It's nonstop. And I like to believe that them overextending their hand this way consistently for the last decade and a half is waking up more people. And sometimes you get in this swamp of social media and you get overwhelmed with the loud minority of people sometimes, and you don't realize that they're not as representative as you may think. As seen in the last little special election for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat down there in Georgia last week. We held another seat. We got another seat in a special election. So I'm not saying that's just hey hurrah, we still beating them and we're winning. But at the same time, it's like we are kind of equally divided in this country. I wish there was a little bit of a bridge in that gap, but I'm not extra motivated to close that gap anymore the way I used to be because of what we just talked about. The spin is so ridiculous. And it's like, if you don't see this by now, what is it going to take for people to see this? Sometimes it just gets, overwhelming. It's like, come on, man. You hear the text that he put out about, oh, hold on. No, we're not doing that. We seen the tweet or truth that he put out about killing off a civilization. Okay. I don't understand why people don't get this. He's not literally saying, "Oh, we're gonna drop a nuke on the whole country and kill everybody." For some reason, it's what the liberals heard. He's been saying for weeks that we're gonna bring their civilization back to a stone age. I don't want to do this. I hope these bastards get their mind right. Like I said in our first commentary on this topic, I was saying that I'm not all in on this, but I hope he goes in and get the job done. Get it done. Get it over with. And we shouldn't want to go in for a prolonged situation. What that threat was the art of the deal. Say something outrageous to the extreme, hope they back down and capitulate and meet in the middle. I was thinking they would have capitulated weeks ago. I said it here on other on video. I said I don't understand why they don't just surrender. They have no dog in this fight. But meanwhile, while we're standing over this guy ground pounding, we got people behind us that's supposed to be on our side, cheering the minute that this man reaches up and hit you with a sucker punch or something like that. The guy shot a mad pap, or what is it, man pad? And it's a grenade launch. This is not their air. This is not an air defense system. This is a
No, it was
shot.
a heat seeker, shoulder fired heat seeker, and the engines of the aircraft it sucked it up, man. They already knew what it was. That's why they had to eject. Right. You're not going to get rid of it.
Right. Top, what's up, Top?
Y'all are speaking out of turn about what shot the aircraft, so that's cool. But okay, no big deal. No, you're cool. It was a man portable air defense system of some sort that was supplied to them. We're not quite sure. It might even have been an American system.
Oh wow. Now
So
that's
there's a lot of things that are
right.
out about that. They're not sure.
Right.
But most of
Well,
our combat aircraft.
how about this? On that topic, being that it might be American, do you remember our withdrawal in Afghanistan and all of our equipment, billions and billions of dollars of trucks and all types of stuff that they were parading around? It could have come from that if it's ours. It could have. Meanwhile, the hypocritical left, they out here talking about, oh, Trump just destroyed a fallen plane because he didn't want to leave any evidence. Y'all weren't tripping about Biden leaving billions and billions of dollars worth of our equipment in Afghanistan.
Great point.
Is that not hypocrisy?
$65 billion, dude.
Great point.
Bruh,
Nobody said
it's
a
like,
damn thing about it.
not a damn thing. Like,
But
fuck it. They over there parading.
I'm going to annihilate your civilization. Hey, Ray and Will, that's the only language they understand.
Exactly.
During Easter, they didn't care that Trump dropped an F-bomb. Of course, these same people that said he needs to be impeached were concerned over the Easter weekend. You know, God forbid, the Trump can say fuck on a True Social post and called them Iranian bastards. God forbid that. But see, the Iranians didn't care. That's not they don't care about F-bombs. They only understand about annihilation. That's their language.
Right.
Go ahead, Top.
Right.
Yeah, look, dude, I love this. I love what we're talking about. I love this thing. But the Iranian people, I would think are wonderful people.
Right,
I would think that the Iranian people themselves, we were to have dinner together, if we were to go break bread and have drinks, we would have a blast. I promise we would find much common ground. There's no reason that we need to be friggin' bombing each other.
Right.
But in my opinion, they could have stopped this a long time ago. They could have said, hey, I agree. Obama gave us lots of money and we're not making nukes. Come check it out. Look at this new playground that we made with the money you gave. You know, they could have done that. They didn't. They did not. They could have taken a different route.
When I was in Iraq, we had my platoon had to set up a traffic control point on a major highway. And there was a bus of Iranians, believe it or not, that actually pulled up. And I had to get on there and check it with my interpreter. And I was like, Iranians? I said, oh, this ain't going to be good. So me and another soldier went on there, man. I said, this might be it for me. I didn't give a shit. I went on there, man. And the interpreter, some lady said something to me. She raised her hand and she was very nice. Iranian woman. They were there for a pilgrimage to they can't afford to go to Mecca, so they're going to a pilgrimage, a Muslim pilgrimage that they have every year in Iraq. So they're allowed to travel to and from the border. Anyways, she looked at me and she said, when are you going to come to our country and do this for us, sir? She was sincere. So going back to what Will just said, the people are great, man. They really are. It's the damn regime, the people in charge that have to be eliminated. And if I'm not mistaken, I think 3/4 of them, if not even more, are just already eliminated, man. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Right. On that topic, let's go ahead and get to these bullet points. All right. So the ceasefire. Can you guys see that?
No. Let me add something to the stage. That what you want?
Yes, sir. All right. So here we go. Now we offered our 15 points. Trump is claiming that most of them are already in agreement, which, that's neither here nor there to me. But what has come back from Iran is what's important to me. And I wanted to cover these topics. First of all, we have 10-point proposal. Number one, no more tax on Iran. Iran wants firm guarantee that the U.S. and its allies will stop all strikes permanently. Tehran is not asking for just a temporary pause, but a lasting end to the conflict, okay? Number two, release of Iranian assets. All Iranian assets frozen abroad must be returned as part of an agreement. Step three, Stop Israeli strikes in Lebanon. Iran demands an end to attacks in Lebanon, where Israel has been targeting Hezbollah. Demand number 4, lift all U.S. sanctions. Tehran wants all American sanctions removed as they have long armed Iran's economy. Number 5, no more attacks on Iran's allies. Iran insists that its allied groups across the region must be left alone under any broad peace deal. Safe reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says is ready to allow ships to pass through this vital global oil route safely. And 7, fees per ship. Each ship passing through the strait would need to pay a fee of around $2 million. And number 8, sharing revenue with Oman. The money collected from transit fees would be split with Oman, which sits across the strait. Tehran would also set up a proper system to ensure the safe passage of ships. 9, binding UN Security Council resolution. Iran wants all agreements formalized through a binding resolution at the UN Security Council. 10, use fees to rebuild. Rather than asking for direct compensation, Iran plans to use the collected fees to rebuild infrastructure damaged during the conflict. Talk about asking from a point with no cards. Like, it's one of those. It's a wild situation, man. You have no cards in this. You don't have any leverage, but yet you believe that you have a position of power to demand us to just let you run the straight, guarantee you that we'll never attack. No, man, no, I'm not there. What say you, Top?
So look, obviously they can close the straits in some kind of way. Obviously they can impact it in some kind of way. Although our president says we sunk their navy, if we like totally destroyed it, then what are we talking about here? Why? How can they still affect it? That's the thing that confuses me.
Let me help you out on this. Imagine you have a single entrance to your subdivision at your house, your neighborhood, one way in, one way out. And you have this organization that's hiding in bunkers, hiding places, and they're saying that all over there, we're continuously dropping landmines. We're continuously, watching, and we're going to shoot at RPG at anything. Now, what ends up happening is there's this idea of the possibility of any kind of attack, and you got billion-dollar cargo ships. Insurance companies don't want to insure those ships. Insurance companies don't want to insure the billions of dollars worth of goods that may be on those ships passing through it. So it's a harmful effect downwind on the global economy, because you have people. If I invest $10 billion into a oil tanker, I'm not sending it through there if I'm already being informed that there's no guarantee that somebody won't shoot. All it takes is one terrorist to shoot an RPG right into the ship.
No. Look, the Straits of Hormuz is huge. You can go through there. It's not like the Panama Canal. It's not
I could take a drone and fly over that all I want to, man.
Both of you guys.
I don't know. Yeah, I hear you, Ray. I don't see how it's miles wide. And if we've decimated the Iranian Navy, then how I don't like one of the demands. I tried to go back. They demanded like $2 million per ship or something. Dude, that's bullshit. What?
Right.
Kiss my ass. What the? Right. This is just a body of water. It'd be like us saying, if you go in between Cuba and U.S. and you transit that area, we're going to tax you, on your ship. It's like, what? Right. Somebody can't go through there.
Right.
Well, so how can Iran sit here and demand that if you go through this particular, remember, I was deployed there. I went to the Persian Gulf in '88. I was there and we were doing these things. But I don't quite get how they can suddenly say, we're Iran and we're over here, and if you go through this land, you got to give us money.
Well, you got to realize just along their coast, that's a large, vast area. You know, just their coastline. And as we've seen, we've had a fighter pilot downed by just somebody with a man pack. Just with, I don't know exactly what the equipment was, all right, but that wasn't a significant or large sophisticated group of technology that's creating some kind of air security, right? That was a one-off. Now, I don't know about you, but if I got $10 billion on the line, I don't want to play with one-offs. And if we have some kind of route or information to who is supposedly pulling the strings in Iran, and they're claiming that, yeah, this is our only leverage, we're not holding it up, even if they're bluffing. They could be bluffing their asses off. This is a poker hand most poker players don't want to call on, because if you're not you're looking at your hand and seeing a royal flush, but they're pump faking like, it's out there, something about it makes me and there's only so much we can do. This hits back to why, one, in our first episode covering this, I said that I was disappointed in Trump as far as all of a sudden asking for help from our allies, right? And the number one reason why is because when we destroyed the things that were the biggest threats, I felt like it was time to call victory and clear it. I didn't see no reason to go any further. Now, I'm not the guy making the decisions. I don't have all the deep intel, and I don't know what made them go further or stayed around. And I'm not condemning Trump for that decision. There's always going to be, nobody should ever agree 1,000%, in my opinion. But in also in my opinion, when you look at, I was watching something fascinating the other day. It was an expose into Great Britain's Navy. And it looks like they have lost all of their dreadnought ships that they had in the 40s. Their navy is decimated. Iran had a stronger navy than they have currently, and all of their ships, 90% of their ships are untenable. They're still under service. They're in service. So they don't even have the ships to come help us, and that kind of leads to the fact of like why they didn't send their supposedly mine sweepers down there, is because they couldn't. They're still under service. So it kind of begs, it gives me understanding of why they keep throwing these hints out about capable allies. You might hear that as a running trend in this administration. We don't have capable allies. Rubio said it, War said it, Trump said it. But in all aspects, our Navy isn't built to deal with mines. That's why we needed the help. But that's also more reason why I feel like we should have turned tail after we did our work. Let Israel and everybody else that needs to straight deal with that. That's my opinion on that. But at the same time, you can't just wipe away the threat or the possibility for those one-offs, just like they did just a minute ago. If they really had the actual capability to consistently decimate our air superiority, we wouldn't have been able to rescue our guys. What say you, Nate?
I agree with you, and I apologize for having to go off for a second. I lost both of your guys'
it's all
sound.
good. All good.
Anyways, hey man, I understand about the minesweepers. They simply probably don't have them. But
Right.
the problem I have with it, we're not even allowed to use our European bases. Our bases in Germany, our bases in Italy. Okay, we have major air bases and combat efficiency where that particular country, such as Italy, such as Spain, said we can't launch from our own platforms and our own bases that we pay for in their countries.
Not to mention France capitulating, trying to get races with them guys.
The UK, we have air bases in UK, so we have to fly around. We're not even allowed to use their airspace. We have to fly around the Mediterranean to get into our objectives, unless, of course, we use our bases in Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, which I believe most of our sorties were flown from, that and the aircraft carriers and all that. But still, man, it's just the thought of it. NATO forces. Now, what I haven't seen today yet, I have not seen the NATO leaders. I haven't heard a word about him or Trump's meeting today at the White House. But I bet you didn't go too well. That's just my opinion.
Right. What you got, Top?
One of the things that I despise about being an American soldier was the thought of ever coming under a NATO flag, ever wearing a UN or any other kind of helmet. When I was an American soldier, I wanted to wear the American flag. I didn't want no other friggin' blue helmet. I didn't want none of that stuff, right? Okay. Second thing, they're parading this NATO Secretary General around like he's some head of state. Right? That he's the president elected or somehow blah, blah of some country. No, he is the Secretary General of NATO. I mean, what is this? Explain to me what this is. Show me this on a map. Show me what NATO is. It needs a Secretary General such that he needs to come to town and meet with our president and go to Tampa and meet with our special operations forces guys. That is undeo. That is bullshit.
Right.
I am not a fan of that. I am not a fan.
If he's NATO's spokesperson, I don't think I'm telling you. I can't wait to find out after we get off this. I'm going to turn on the news and find out because they have to say something. I'm sure he's not in the White House anymore, but it's going to be interesting to find out. I even told my wife earlier. I said, I hope Trump, just like he did Zelensky that first fucked up meeting. I hope he kicks him the shit out of. I hope he kicks him out of the White House, man. Hey, get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Say the wrong thing to me once.
You know the crazy part about it is,
like Ray said, you can handle the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. You know, the crazy part about it is, like I highlighted about the Great Britain Navy. The Royal Navy was the most feared fighting force for literally around 400 years, man. I mean, all that colonizer talk, that was them. They were powerhouses globally, and everybody knew it, right? And to be diminished to what they are today, to where they can't even send a couple ships, they can't even get any. They have literally like 7 frigators, something like that. I was looking at this thing. I'm not well versed in all of their equipment, but to see that their capabilities is like 90% reduced since World War II, it's like, how did you go backwards? But the reason why I suspect is the cultural problem. Internally, they stopped investing into their defense because we covered down and subsidized it. And this is what you see across NATO. We subsidized all of their defense and protected them from big bad Russia and the Soviet Union for so long that they laid down and started worrying about social programs, worrying about all of these social issues and turning into socialist nations. And that's why their culture is dying. That's why their people are dying. That's why their women are being raped at a record-breaking neck speed. It's horrible what's happening over there in Europe right now. And you do see a lot of people on the ground wanting to go back, but their recruitment numbers of their defense branches are all the way down. Nobody wants to fight for their nations anymore. So it's one of those situations that NATO is really becoming a burden to us. And it just so happened that Trump is the first one to actually point this thing out, and this situation is actually highlighting it all. It is highlighting it. It's putting a big spotlight on it all. We talked about General Jack King earlier off air. I wanted to share his take on this, and very rarely do I ever agree with this man. He's a hawkish guy. He comes from, like Nate feels, old era where it was like,
I sat in his office one time. I've met the guy. I've been there with him. I love him. But he's hawkish as hell.
He's very hawkish.
I got his coin, dude. I sat in his office.
Yeah. And this is not a condemnation on him as a person, right? Like, I just think that he's very military first, damn diplomacy, and it's all good that is what it is. But, when you think about when you think about how Iran has strung us along for 47 years, I think he's highlighted this epically. And I wanted to share that with you guys real quick. If you'll share my screen.
Last night, I heard you on the air on our program here that you would rather have the military pressure continue, but that heat has been put on pause, sir. What do you think this morning, General?
Well, you've got to look at this from Iran's perspective. Why did they shut down the Straits of Hormuz? What was their objective that they were trying to achieve here? Their objective was simply one, to stop the war. They have achieved that objective. We have indeed stopped the war. So what, and not only that, the Iranians are still in control, Bill. The IRGC Navy has told all the ships in the Gulf to pass through the straits, you need our permission. So they're very much in control of the Straits of Hormuz, and all of those ships are going to abide by those warnings, certainly, that Iran has given. So what's their play going forward here? I think they got two plays to make here. One is obviously we're going into negotiations. And as you have clearly pointed out, we couldn't be further apart in these negotiations. And that's one of the reasons why Iran published their 10-point plan. I mean, they're bold about it. This is what we want to achieve. But they're setting the stage for extending the negotiations. They are masters at obfuscation and delay. Their objective going into the negotiation will be to delay the negotiations, extend the ceasefire. Why? Well, we're getting closer to a deal here. They will say anything to convince our negotiators of that. We're getting closer to a deal. And what we would do, if we extend those negotiations, Iran is buying for time. Why? Because as time goes by, the oil prices start to come down. The pressure is off the president and the administration economically and financially, and also somewhat politically. Mm-hmm. And they are counting on that pressure on the president at that point not to have the will to reattack several weeks from now because of the extension of the negotiations. That is what they're counting on. What we should do right now is issue an ultimatum to them based on the 2 weeks. Iran, you meet our conditions, and we know what those conditions are, and the president wants to make them public once again, make them public. And if you don't meet our conditions in 2 weeks, then we're going to reattack. The second play they have, and they're executing it right now, they are attacking our Arab allies in the region. They're still doing that. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they want the Arabs to pressure the administration to shut down Israel's attack in Lebanon. The prime minister and the president talked yesterday, and the prime minister certainly wanted to continue his operation in Lebanon to clear out all of the Hezbollah that have been attacking into northern Israel and somewhat into central Israel as well. Once and for all, they're going to take down every infrastructure that is there. That is what they are about, and they got ground troops doing it. They're not going to put up with this anymore. In other words, they're going to do something more considerable than what they did several months ago. And they want the permission to do that, and the Iranians want that stopped, and that's their second play here. And certainly what I'm hoping the administration does is support the prime minister on this and let them clear out the Hezbollah from that area. That is what I think is in front of us in terms of what the Iranians are trying to do and what the United States and how we should handle what's taking place here.
J.D. Vance.
They're doing it. Okay, the administration is doing exactly what he just said. Now, one thing, number one, you don't think President Trump doesn't understand anything that just came out of that man's mouth? And I like the guy, but he's a warmonger. I'm sorry. He's back from the old generation of the 2000s that had the mentality to keep us in frickin' Iraq for 8 years and keep us in Afghanistan for 20 years. He's one of those guys, okay? Right. You just heard what he said. But you don't think for 1 minute that President Trump is not aware of what the Iranian regime is doing or trying to do? or what their goals are probably. And as far as Hezbollah goes, President Trump hasn't told Israel to stop. Okay, and Israel, between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, that's got nothing to do with us stopping to bomb them. Okay, that's because the Iranian portion of Hezbollah continues attacking Israel.
Exactly.
So welcome to the last several centuries, several decades, that Israel is not going to allow anybody, I don't give a fuck who it is, they're not going to allow anybody to bomb their civilian structures in their country. That's never been allowed, and they're not going to stop now because President Trump has met his objectives thus far. We're not, and the war didn't end, General Keane. The war did not end. We are at a ceasefire, just like we used to do on live fire ranges. We used to call it lift fire, and you would just stop firing for a minute, and then we would get the order to ceasefire. But the problem is, man, General Keane also said this morning that this was the last leverage that the United States had. We still have the leverage, okay? We have all the cards in our hand, okay? Is this ceasefire going to last 2 weeks? I don't think it is. I think by next Wednesday, and if I am wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but if I am wrong, I will come publicly on this show and apologize and say I was wrong.
Right.
This freaking thing's not going to last a week. We'll be back talking about this next Wednesday, and the United States, I think between now and then, is going to begin and continue bombing the shit out of them.
Right.
But right now, our soldiers and our troops and our airmen, they need a little break. You know, give them a little R&R, man, right there on
13,000 missions.
Let them
13,000 missions.
They have
in the
to
last
their
month.
Equipment and their weaponry and their personnel. That's every combat mission. And they went 38 days straight.
You know, what's up, Top?
Hey, I just want to say how proud I am of our president and his leadership and the things that he's done. When Secretary of War Pete Hegseth stands up there and they talk about the things that happened and all of the big picture kind of stuff. We won't understand it all until the movie comes out, right? And it's not our place to kind of we can only dream of those kinds of things as former warriors, right? We all have the dreams of secretly being the hero, where we're the one that rescues the fair maiden that's in the tower or whatever. You know, it's just kind of the way it is. That's just but I'll tell you that I'm very proud of a leader in our country that says, look, you've been being mean to us for a while, and if you don't quit being mean to us, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. And I'll give you until this certain day to quit, you know, stealing my lunch money, or I'm going to punch you in the mouth. And eventually it comes to the date where he punches him in the mouth. And he has allies that are also punching them in the mouth. And I'm not about beating people up. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is being a leader to against terrorism, against free shipping, against this. They're talking about closing the Straits of Hormuz, but yet they have no navy. And yet Jamie's talking about, you know, Iran restricts shipping to the strait using, well, I'll tell you what, they won't have a single fast attack drone, a naval mine. They mess around. They won't have none of it. What will happen is they'll break every one of them out and we'll blow every one of them up, and they'll have zero. The thing that I'm not quite sure that the world quite understands is the destruction possibilities of a determined American military. They will blow your ass up. I mean, blow you up. And
You know, it's
assess
funny
battle
how
damage.
the left talks about Geneva Convention when it's convenient and war crimes, and not understanding that over the last 47 years, this regime that we have just knocked off his axis has facilitated thousands of American deaths, facilitated the October 7th attacks in Israel. I mean, when I seen that and I saw the footage on the ground from that, burned babies in fucking cribs with their heads cut off, women in back of pickup trucks with their legs twisted in awkward ways after they've ravaged them. When I seen all of that unedited footage, you know evil. You know evil. And nobody wants to talk. The minute that our Israel started attacking back, now they're the bad guys. I just don't understand the logic of this. I don't see how they constantly use this Marxist ideology of oppressor oppress. They like to look at us as the big bullies. When I remember being downrange and the efforts that we went through, Nate, you could co-sign this. We had strict guidelines on everything we did. I mean, down to the caliber of weapon that you could hit other personnel with. You can't hit somebody with a 50 cal. That's an internal investigation. Am I lying? Right? Like, so it's like
No, you ain't lying.
the humanitarian rules and the way that we go above and beyond to try our best to mitigate civilian casualties, to do everything by the book. When there's nobody, now mind you, there's nobody on this planet that could uphold those laws, the Geneva Convention, against us. If we decided to act like them, there's nobody that could stop us. So my thing is, why don't we get the benefit of the doubt half the time from the left and these individuals that want to condemn us and outright just make us the bad guy all the time? I don't understand it. I really don't get it. And what so much so they want to root against our own team. It just doesn't make no sense to me. The best way I could paint this picture is like, imagine you got a girlfriend, and for some reason y'all go to a bar, and there's this guy that's been bullying you since 8th grade at this bar, right? Always bullying you. You get in here, and now he sees you come in through the door. First thing he does is come out his way to come and fuck with you. You got your little fine little something there. Smack on the ass. Man, that might be your last draw. Now you beating his ass in here, but this is the kicker. You beating his ass, and now your girlfriend is calling you an asshole for whooping him up. That's what's happening right now. That is literally what's happening right now. And I don't understand the logic of lefties that, oh, it's just because Trump is in charge. You know, the to General King's point about them postponing. They are really postponing. They're the masters of it. Every time we have these situations, last time we had Obama go over there and give them the money, right? What did they do? What did they do with the money? They were supposed to have limitations on what kind of armed defense they have. They weren't supposed to be able to shoot rockets 2,500 miles away. What did they do? Well, it turns out they had them. And just a couple weeks ago, what did the regime say? Of course we were working on nuclear bombs. You even had Bill Maher come out there and talk about that. He had to straighten one of his guests. So yes, they were doing all of that shit. We were the gullible suckers to come and give them the funding to do it. At what point do we say, you know what? We're not playing with you no more. We're not playing with you no more.
The green light. Go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, that's why I feel like this whole 10-point strategy that they're talking about is all a postponement tactic. And I'm with you, Nate. We will be back on their ass in a couple weeks. I already know it. If not this week, I already know it.
The 10-point thing is their wish list. And that's why when you were reading it off and I put my glasses on so I get up there and read the shit, I was shaking my head at 95% of it because it's just not going to happen. Okay? Sanctions aren't going bye-bye. The Strait of Hormuz will be open. They're not going to be able to get passage fee to go in and out. I'm sorry, that's international. That's an international waterway. That is not Iranian territory. They don't own the strait. That's an international waterway. So they're not getting anything. But anyways, that's what those are that's their wish list, and we have ours. I think all these geniuses, to include General Keane, And he is. He's a great military tactician. Don't get me wrong. The guy teaches it in a school. I got it, man. But don't think for 2 seconds that President Trump doesn't already realize everything that came out of that man's mouth. And like I said, I remember General Keane back in the day. He was a good dude, man. He still is. He's a great dude. I remember on Fort Bragg, he saved a life. He started pumping on General Petraeus' chest on a live fire range. A bullet hit General Petraeus right in the chest before they got a medevac. General Keane's one that was giving him, pumping his chest for him. And when Petraeus was the 1st Brigade commander of the 82nd Airborne Division. But anyways, man, that's neither here nor there. But no, we're going to be back in this shit. We're taking a breather. We got 99% of our objectives already met, and they agreed to come to the table. We scared the shit out of them. They knew we weren't bullshitting. No. And I told my wife, I said, I can't wait till 8 o'clock. Hell, I had the news. I was ready to go. I said, here we go. But no. But these same individuals still get upset when we do the peace thing. Yeah, as far as the left, man, that's just because Trump's president. That's all. Obama would have been a hero. Man.
I hope the ceasefire stands. I don't want to see it fall apart, but I don't have faith in Iran. All right. I think
that's what I mean. I want it to go
They're definitely going to try. They're definitely trying to stall. And to General King's point, stall long enough where they could try to start rebuilding and do it. They know these fucking demands aren't going to be met. They know for a fact. But I am thinking that as we keep knocking out each regime that they want to put up in front, and sooner or later, sensible heads will capitulate. I can't see them not. They don't want the people, the economy, the civilization. Top, I'll let you have the last word on this before we move to Birthright.
Hey, look, I'm very proud of President Trump, and I believe that he found something to stand on. He said, look, at least your demands or whatever or something that we can begin to talk about. And so we'll stop bombing the shit out of you. I think it's very kind. I really do. And so I agree that there's some of this stuff we're probably not going to do. And it's like kind of obviously, blatantly obvious. But again, I honestly believe remember, dude, I was not a Trump supporter in the beginning of all of this. I've come around. I'm very proud. Very proud. I think that he's doing the right thing and leading our country in the right way. I'm very proud that we're peaceful right now. We've stopped bombing people. We're not bombing their bridges and power plants and all the things.
That's catastrophic.
Right. We don't. I cannot. Can you imagine the thought of like, I can't get to Georgia? What do you mean you can't get to Georgia? Like, well, I can't cross the bridge down here at the river. It's been blown up.
Or you're so used to electricity and you can't, for weeks, no electricity, no running water. Iran is not a third world country, really. They might have some really backwoods areas, but they are a very civilized place as far as their tech and their infrastructure.
That's what he meant. That's what he meant by saying we're going to take out their civilization. He didn't mean we're going to drop a nuclear bomb on them. He meant we're going to take out their energy source because that is their lifeline. That's what he meant. You know what? All those assholes in D.C. and on the news, they all knew it too. Every damn one of them knew exactly what he was talking about. But they had to have a talking point so they can say the I word one more time before the midterms. We're going to impeach his ass. And I'll let you move on, man.
Go to YouTube and search Tehran nightlife. Go to YouTube and search Kiev nightlife. And you would be amazed at what's happening in a supposed war zone while we're, sitting over here.
Kiev is not on the front lines by any means.
Still, dude, it is presented to the news as if they're being bombed daily.
Right.
Meanwhile, their transgender community is booming.
Right.
And
And that is also a testament to American ingenuity for the fact that we gave them weapons to fight these fuckers off, and now they're just stuck where they got. They got what they invaded in, and they're just holding it. They're in their own little ceasefire. It's almost like the DMZ right now. The DMZ up there, the demilitarized zone. You know, they're not active right now, but they can't take their spot back. Russia's not encroaching anymore, but they're not friendly. You know, what you got, Nate?
Hey, one last thing, man. This is a great subject. I mean, we can go on and on all night about this.
Yeah.
But I want to get to the birthright. But talking about when you said North Korea, Trump made a great point the other day. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just NATO that refused to help us in any way, shape, or form. He mentioned non-NATO nations, Australia, Japan, South Korea, just to name a few that are part of NATO that also refused to not help us. Okay.
Oh, but Japan came around. I'm covering that at the end of the show too for a new alliance.
Okay, that's news to me. But I hope you would hope and wish they would. I mean, we've had 45, 50,000 troops on the in South Korea for the last 70, 80 years now.
Right. So on the next topic, birthright citizenship. Share my page again. I just want to cover the opening arguments for the presentation, the arguments on behalf of eliminating birthright citizenship as we know it. I think this is such an eloquently put argument. Let me just play it real quick.
Argument this morning in case 25-365, Trump versus Barbara. General Sauer.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court. The Citizenship Clause was adopted just after the Civil War to grant citizenship to the newly freed slaves and their children, whose allegiance to the United States had been established by generations of domicile here. It did not grant citizenship to the children of temporary visitors or illegal aliens who have no such allegiance. This conclusion reflects the original public meaning of the clause. When Congress used the term "not subject to any foreign power" in the Civil Rights Act of 1866, it rejected the British conception of allegiance. Senator Trumbull explained that subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the clause means not owing allegiance to anybody else. And in 1884, this court recognized that subject to the jurisdiction means owing direct and immediate allegiance. The clause thus does not extend citizenship to the children of temporary visa holders or illegal aliens. Unlike the newly freed slaves, those visitors lack direct and immediate allegiance to the United States. For aliens, lawful domicile is the status that creates the requisite allegiance, and the text of the clause presupposes domicile. For decades following the clause's adoption, commentators recognize that the children of temporary visitors are not citizens, and illegal aliens lack the legal capacity to establish domicile here. Unrestricted birthright citizenship contradicts the practice of the overwhelming majority of modern nations. It demeans the priceless and profound gift of American citizenship. It operates as a powerful pull factor for illegal immigration and rewards illegal aliens who not only violate the immigration laws, but also jump in front of those who follow the rules. It has spawned a sprawling industry of birth tourism as uncounted thousands of foreigners from potentially hostile nations have flocked to give birth in the United States in recent decades, creating a whole generation of American citizens abroad with no meaningful ties to the United States. I welcome the court's questions.
Now, I think that the petitioner general eloquently laid out a very strong case. And you know, that whole hearing went on for about 3 hours. I listened to the whole thing. I want to let some groundwork for those of our viewers that might not really fully grasp all of this. The point of the Supreme Court hearing these arguments are to essentially interpret what laws are and what laws stand as. A lot of people have this conceived notion that they're making laws or changing laws. That's not what they do. They interpret the law and then find a ruling on the law. What you have in the conservative view, what conservative justice typically do, they either take an originalist standpoint or a contextualized standpoint, and they make their determination on that. What we see happening with the liberal judges and the well, we can call them progressive judges now. They look at the Constitution as a living document, a living, breathing, evolving creature that just can change as it wants to. Now, what we are on my side of the aisle as a conservative, what I look at the Constitution as is a document that is a beautifully well-written thing that tells us what the government can't do to us and what the government's not allowed to do to its citizens and what rights as citizens we have. And they're supposed to be uninfringible. Now, there are things in the Constitution that can be changed with, these are safeguards put into our founding by our House and Senate. They can rewrite and legislate. That's the legislature's branch job to do. Now, what we're talking about today with birthright citizenship, it comes from an executive order, which for some reason, for the last 20 years, Congress has been at standstills in all types of different subject matters, and president after president after president tries to address things that are actually happening in our economy or in our civilization that we have to address. For instance, let's say Second Amendment, First Amendment. Second Amendment shall not be infringed. It's easy to look at and say, well, that's self-explanatory. Originalist interpretation from a conservative perspective is, well, what was the founders thinking behind saying shall not be infringed? Well, they will say during the time they understood that the minute that you give up your rights as a citizen to be able to carry arms and fight on terms with military of any nation, you can't protect yourself, you can't fight off any invader forces, and you can't overthrow tyranny or authoritarianism. So they look at the people and the time that they were living in and try to interpret why they said this. The contextualized argument comes down to the text itself. By definition, shall not be infringed. We're not changing this. Shall not be infringed. We're not changing this. The liberal point of view and progressive point of view will always look at, well, at this time, they didn't think that, people would have nuclear bombs. They didn't think people would have tanks. They didn't think people would have this and that. Okay. The text says shall not be infringed. The originalist argument has the philosophy behind it. But for some reason, progressive always think everything has to change and have to evolve, which there's an argument to be had there, which means our system has its safeguards for that where it has to go through the executive branch. This argument about no longer birthright citizenship, in my opinion, after listening to the whole thing and how the judges were talking, it will be shot down. But I agree with the argument, and I think that was the reason why Trump did the executive order in the first place, to now start talking about it as we are going to do. What say you, Top? Are you for birthright citizenship or against it?
So look, here's what I'll say. I am for the original long-term idea that has been, if you somehow were here as part of a real legal situation and you get born here, then you have citizenship. When I was your first sergeant, back in the mid 2000s, I was down on the Rio Grande and I was dove hunting. Me and my buddy, me and former or future retired Command Sergeant Major Burnley were down there, and we were shooting doves, and we go gather them up. And there was one point where this little girl comes running up to me. She was like, I don't know, 8 years old or so. And she had like 3 doves in her hands. And she comes running from the river. And right behind her was her father. And right behind her was her little brother. And right behind her was her mother. And her mother was very with child. And they were coming across the river. And they offered me all of these killed doves. They were there. One of the things you got to understand is at that time, it was the opening day of dove season, and there was hundreds of us on the Rio Grande River, and we were all dove hunting. And many times these doves would fall into the river or over on the other side of the river, and we couldn't recover them. And so long and short of it is they come up to me and they just handed me these doves, more doves than I could ever imagine. And I'm just like, what in the world do I do with this? And I put them on the tailgate of my truck, and this family with a pregnant lady walked north. And basically they came in, gave me a present of doves that were dead, and then walked into America to have a baby. It was very, I mean, she was very much pregnant. And I mean, what am I going to do? I'm not going to shoot them. I'm not going to stop my dove hunt to call the cops and report them. But it was, I'll never forget that, experience where she just, and the whole family, there was several of them just.
So do you think that should be allowed, that child that she was with child should be now a citizen, having the right to vote, having a say in what goes on with your children or grandchildren, right? Soaking up the tax dollars that you paying,
No, that's not right. It's not right. Now look, if she showed up at the hospital and she's like in the emergency room and she's like, I'm having contractions, I need to have this baby, then by golly, let's deliver the baby and let's get her the care that she needs.
And then they got to go home.
But yeah, exactly. Boom. And then when everybody figures it out, it's like, well, hey, look, you guys are actually from Guatemala, and y'all need to get back to Guatemala. And so we put them on a Greyhound bus to Guatemala, I guess. I know there's nothing of Greyhounds to Guatemala, but I'm not even actually excited about putting them on an airplane to Guatemala. I'm like, get your ass on back to wherever you came from, kind of thing, because you could look. We got to begin as human beings to take care of the people that are in our own damn community.
Right.
That's the thing that we got to begin to do again. There was a point in our lives maybe that, we're all of a similar generation in that we thought that our government was going to take care of us, that somebody cared about us, and that it meant something to be a whatever person, right? An American or a Mexican.
Ask not what you could do for your country, but what can you do for your? Ask not what can your country do for you, but what can you do for your country?
Right.
The last great Democrat.
We grew up with that kind of thought process, like it was like it was something that defined us, and many of us it did. Look, the three of us are very much a testament to what an American soldier is about. Okay, we did the things that we were asked to do without asking questions, man. I mean, Nate, you talk about people looking at you and saying, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to have this thing on your shoulder or else, right? We all know about the thought of jumping out of an airplane in the middle of a night, right? For no reason. There's no reason we're doing this. It's just not even actually for fun. Right. We gotta go jump, there's things that as human beings and Americans that we're willing to do. But I'll tell you, the meaning comes from the connection with our brothers and sisters. The meaning comes from those times when we're standing there looking at each other, waiting for the green light to come on, right? And we're like tapping each other on the shoulder going, have a good jump, man. See you on the ground, and there's something to that, right?
Right. What's your take, Nate?
I'm against it. Excuse me. I'm against it. Birthright citizenship, that term's not even in the Constitution, but under the 14th Amendment, those that are born on soil, I guess the interpretation and the term is correct in a certain point of view on it. But Yeah, the Democrats, the majority of the Democrats in 1968, that was their answer to the end of the Civil War, the end of slavery for the 13th Amendment. Their answer was to deport all ex-slaves and their families, deport them back to Africa.
Right.
That was the Democratic legislation in Washington, D.C. Their answer was to deport them. The Republicans said, well, we can't do that because they know nothing about Africa. Okay, they speak English. They're Christian. They know nothing. What they do know is they knew Virginia, and maybe they were traded. Maybe they were traded to Georgia because their owners at the time had to make a trade deal or whatever the case may be, or maybe a disciplinary problem. But let me give you an example. The majority of slave families in that time period, they didn't have a Kunta Kinte in their families to explain their heritage coming from Africa. Most of them didn't. Most of them, like I said, they knew that, well, I was born in Virginia. My family's still in Virginia, but I got traded to go to Georgia. I'm using that as an example. The Republicans came up with the 14th Amendment for that main reason.
Right.
Now, over time, especially in the last 2 decades, that has been severely abused, and you could even call it molested, taken advantage of for so long, and especially in the last 10 years with this open border shit that was going on. So all Trump did was he put that executive order together specifically to stop it under his presidency. And as of right now, unless, like you said, unless the Supreme Court shuts it down, that's the law right now. Yeah. Now, on a personal note, my father's first generation born in the United States from Mexico. His mother and father in the 40s after World War II worked in the fields in Michigan. They were here on work visas. They were documented through customs. Yes, They were here legally, ladies and gentlemen. They were documented through immigration and customs, through the State Department, through the State Department within their county. They had a record on who my grandparents were. And my father's older brothers and sisters, there's 8 of them. My dad's the youngest. My father was born in the United States, okay, in Michigan, in a little hut house. And my grandparents went through the State Department and put an application request in to remain in the United States so that the family wouldn't lose my father, because my father could stay here, and they had a plan where if they were turned down for having a permanent visa, a permanent green card, if you will, because that's what happened. They were granted a permanent green card to remain in the United States because of my father. However, they were documented. They had records of them that when their work visa's time was up, they were going back to Guatemala. Okay, right. They were going back to Mexico, the whole family. But my father was born here. And they had a plan, though. My uncle, my great uncle, my grandfather's brother, a couple farms down the way, he had a permanent visa. So they were going to let my father basically give him to them. Right. But the State Department approved them to have permanent green cards. So, right. Yes, they were here legally. Now, permanent green card status, naturalization citizenship. In other words, yeah, you're born and raised from a different country, but you earned your citizenship here. You can be deported if you break our laws continuously. And I just wanted to give you that personal aspect of how it went in my family. And I can tell you right now, all my family on the Mexican side of the family, they don't agree with natural born citizenship, man. They don't agree with it unless that family is here legally, brother. Yep. Just like I can't, when I was stationed in Germany and South Korea, okay, and let's say I bring my wife over there, we have our baby over there, which you can, my son or daughter doesn't automatically become a German citizen. Okay, we're the only country that does that, I think, on the planet Earth. I can't go to Dominican Republic on vacation with my wife. She has a baby, and now my newborn baby has dual citizenship for the United States and Dominican Republic. You know, that's just an example of what I'm talking about. But it's been abused so bad that the left want it so bad for voting purposes that we're at where we're at right now, man.
Right.
The Chinese sending they're having kids over here on vacations purposely. Okay. Yep. That's a plan. And that's all Trump's trying to bring to the attention of the American people.
Right. On that topic, same thing with me. So a little bit of my background. My father, Haitian, full-blooded Haitian. He came over here in the 80s. Him and a bunch of his cousins during that whole crisis back then. I had a conversation with him not too long ago about this topic, right? Immigration, how he feels on it, all the other stuff. My father's not very well versed in politics. But one thing about him, he does love this country. He's been here since I was born, right? He's worked as a waste management driver, literally since I was born. Day in, day out. I've watched this man, you know, from the moment I met him, for a better half of 30 years, consistently. Wake up 4 o'clock in the morning, go and pick up that trash all over the country, all over the city. Hard worker. I look at him now, and compared to our family that's still in Port-au-Prince, the living standards, man, he's happy, man. He lives a modest life. He's in a $600 house, paid off. You know, and he's acquired the American dream, and he announces it that way. The number one thing about it is he came, worked on his visa, got a green card, and got naturalized back in the 90s, right? He loves the country. He does not think anybody that breaks the law and skips the line should be here. He said, no, they make us look bad, man. They make us look bad. Like, and I'm like, you know, we talk about it, and he's like, you know, this is how he talks. Why you think they come here? Why you think they come here and not play by the rules and come here and commit the crime? They commit the crime because they come here and break the rule already. They already break the rule. They come here, commit the crime because they break the rule already. Now, if you work hard and you play by the rule, you get good things, boss man. You get good. That's what you get good things, boss man. You know, and you know, it sticks with me because this is who he is. You know, my grandfather, my great grandfather on my mother's side, born a slave, right? He was a young child during, you know, the Civil War, and you know, it was a little bit of a delayed effect after the Civil War to where he actually got his freedom, right? But I think in his youth, he ended up joining the military for a little bit, and then he got out and became a landowner in Bartow, Florida. And during the time of Prohibition, he was a moonshiner. You know, there's things to say about that. You know, maybe that's a little bit why I got a little bit of hustle in my veins. You know, but he was an American, and on the idea of Republican stance and Democrat stance, he was a conservative. He was all about that Second Amendment. You know, from what I hear, he used to be the type that, you know, he appreciated the Second Amendment because he said, I'll never be a slave again with this. You know what I'm saying? It'll never happen with this. You know, and that was why most Republicans were black men, and the abolishment party. That's why they loved being Republicans. It was about being able to take your own life by its horns, and nobody should be able to get in the way and stop you. You know, that was what they were about. I don't know how they mind fucked us after the 60s and the civil rights movement. They really did a number on us. Everybody keeps talking about this great switch stuff. That's not true. If you look at the records, so what? You know, they talk. It's the same analogy of, oh, KKK is voting for Trump, so the Republicans are fucking KKK. No, that's not how that works. You know what I'm saying? You can't blame me because they agree with something I do. You know, that doesn't mean that I'm them now. That doesn't even make sense. So, long story short, I look at it as the American experience is one that's uniquely ours. You don't have, this is why you have people in Congress right now that are Indians, they come from different countries, and they want to take gun rights, right? And we are electing people that have got through this pipeline of birthright citizenship, and now they're electing to take natural historic Americans, Black Americans, white Americans, Hispanic Americans, what is ingrained in our culture, like the story I just said of why my grandfather was a proponent of the Second Amendment. This is a uniquely American experience. You won't find this anywhere else. So to equate that to somebody that had the money to come from China and have a baby here, and then now this baby has the same rights as my children, your children, people that had no, it shouldn't be allowed, shouldn't happen, and I'm 100% against. You know, you was about to say something, Nate.
Yeah, when you were talking about civil rights in the '60s, how everything got flip flopped between the parties. You know, we're the racists now, the conservatives were the racists.
Right.
That got flip flopped, man, because they had the advantage of having a Democrat president, JFK, in the White House at the time. Okay,
right.
and a Democrat attorney general, the Department of Justice. What people don't realize, the longest Senate filibuster ever recorded was, I think it lasted weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the exact days. I had it written down, but it was over the civil rights. The Democrat lawmakers back in those days,
only 2 of them voted for it.
Thank you.
Only 2 of them voted for it.
They did not want civil rights to be approved in the law. And the Republicans filibustered it for weeks. It was the longest one in Senate history. And the Democrats, I should say, took ownership of it because we had a Democrat president. And they ran with it. They ran with it for votes, and they still try to do it today. But I think, brother, that ended probably about a good 6 or 7 years ago. The United States, the majority of the voters in the United States aren't buying that shit no more.
I think that also leads into why they oppose the SAVE Act. They oppose getting rid of birthright citizenship. I think the left knows they have to bring in a new voting base, you know, and they don't want to admit it, but those caravans to our border over the last 10 years have done a number on us, and they want them people to have babies right now. What's up, top?
So let me ask you this question. So, if all this is the case, why are we worried about them suddenly winning in the midterms? Help me with that.
I think the number one thing is also why you hear them proposing that the SAVE Act that is being proposed right now is a way to cheat in the midterms, because they already are trying to get their alibi of why they didn't win as much as they should have. Right? When we're trying to secure the election, we're trying to get rid of birthright citizenship, trying to get rid of no voter ID in certain jurisdictions like the whole state of California. They have their motivations in keeping illegals able to vote, because if you pay attention over the last year, I don't know why people don't ever notice this, but over the last year, the only thing that lefts can run on is damn Trump and what we're trying to do for illegals. They're not talking about taxes. They're not talking about how to make your life better. It's damn Trump, and the Republicans are racist, and they're xenophobic, they're homophobic. Oh, they advocate for a little bit of dick in the booty action. You know what I mean? This is all they care about. None of the real problems that are going on in the world. Meanwhile, time after time again, it happens. The news cycle is so fast, from inflation dropping to fuel prices. Everything, the achievements that have been happening over the last year is nothing but opposition, and never what their ideas are. Never what they can do for the people. Always fuck what these guys are doing. And I think that that is the biggest hindrance. So, to your point, it's like the worry of us losing, I think, is based off of nefarious activities, truthfully. The midnight mail-in ballots, being able to just harvest people's votes that aren't paying attention. I got a video I've been putting together, and it's really big. And I was supposed to drop it last weekend. It's coming. It's still in the loop, but I had to chase this paper. You know what I mean? I had to come and get to this money. But at the house, in the office, I'm working on some real fire stuff on this democratic process that that you guys might be interested in talking about. As soon as we drop, it'll be a topic. Before we get too late and off in the weeds, the last thing I wanted to share before we go is the potentiality of a new alliance, Western Alliance building. You know, all the stuff we talked about with, you know, Iran put the spotlight on NATO and how Iran is actually destabilizing the region. You know, the GCC, the Gulf communities, the Gulf country communities, they are all turning against Iran and doubling down and giving us more backing in this situation than NATO is, right? Japan just came out and said that they want to help in whatever way. They want to be a big part of all of this. And I want to highlight Japan for a major reason. I was watching this podcast. I'm about to share it with you guys. It's called Dad Saves America, right? This guy he's a long form type of platform where he spends about 35 minutes to an hour really philosophizing about current situations and how we as a people can look at these things and actually move forward. He doesn't come off as a very right wing or left wing guy. He seems more libertarian at heart. His message is more in the center right, if anything. But he highlighted something that I think we all should take a second and look at. You know, less than 100 years ago, we were at war and at odds in the worst way with Japan. We literally dropped nukes and decimated 2 of their major cities. And there's still ramifications of all of that. But over the last meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan that came to U.S. A couple weeks ago, it highlights how even after the war, there can be peace. So I do hope this is an outcome that can happen for, you know, Iran. But this also hints towards the new shaping of alliances. So let me play this for you guys real quick. It's a little excerpt at the end of it. If you guys are interested in this, you know, take the time and go and check out his full podcast. But I want to let him rock for about, I would say, 3-4 minutes. All right.
And some of you may have remembered that the recently elected Prime Minister of Japan came to visit the White House, and President Trump, well, it was really something. I mean, this image in and of itself, just think about this for a minute. They attacked us, we dropped nukes, and here are 2 leaders of former enemies hugging like friends. But the best happens at the press conference.
One question, why didn't you tell US allies in Europe and Asia like Japan about the war before attacking Iran? So we are very confused about Japanese citizens.
Well, one thing, you don't want to signal too much. You know, when we go in, we went in very hard and we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay. Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay.
You can hear the crowd literally going, ooh.
Right? You know, he's asking me, do you believe in surprise?
And then Trump pulling a Norm Macdonald repetition of the joke. You know, like surprise, like the bombs, like they dropped the bombs.
I won't be as funny as that last bit. Just so you know.
Why do I show this? Why do I end with this clip? What's wrong with me? Well, first of all, later, the Prime Minister seemed to be nonplussed about this joke about Pearl Harbor.
Japan is back.
But maybe Japan is back. There was a tweet that got over 1.5 million views from a Japanese citizen that just is worth reading because it's just really something. It just tells you just have no idea what's going on half the time in this world. Do you truly understand what Japan just gained? As a Japanese citizen, I'm telling you, this moment changed history. Trump's Pearl Harbor joke wasn't an insult. It was the key that finally unlocked something buried deep in the Japanese soul. For 80 years, we've carried apology and guilt like a permanent shadow, haunted by the past, bound by the Constitution America wrote for us, forever in reflection mode. He turned that raw wound into a shared laugh between equals. No more endless atonement, no more vassal shadow. The curse is broken. Japan is free now. Thank you, Mr. President. We're allowed to stand tall again as true partners, not subordinates. The strongest alliance in the world is rising. Equals, brothers, ride or die. When I first saw this clip of President Trump, I thought, I did not have this in my bingo card as a reaction from anyone in Japan. But, you know, humor is a powerful thing. And well, this clearly started something of a movement on Twitter from Japanese people just sharing their love with America. Perhaps the best one, especially as Lent comes to an end. And if you're a Christian and maybe weren't eating meat on Fridays, you might join in this Japanese celebration of good old American barbecue. This account, translated from the Japanese, says, I like this photo of American men and meat. Someday I'd like to join in on this in person. And this is just, you know, kind of a standard issue thing you'd see anywhere around my neighborhood this weekend, perhaps. And this is replying to another Japanese post saying, in Sasebo's dining establishment, it's common to spot U.S. military personnel enjoying their meals with lively enthusiasm. One day at a yakiniku restaurant, I came across a group that reached an oddly intense level of excitement just upon seeing the bacon. And of course, here's a screaming over 9,000 powered American GIs going nuts for Japanese bacon with 46 million views. Just think about this for a minute. Think about, it was not even 100 years ago that we were in a battle to the death with this country. And as you scroll down, you just see the love returned in kind. You see Americans saying, come on in. You are officially invited, friend. Bring beer to this guy on the water with a smoker. You've seen mountains of brisket from Florida and Texas. Invitations abound. This is a moment of hope, a silly, ridiculous, glorious moment of hope filled with crazy memes and shared culture, shared cowboy culture. And it's not the only shared cultural moment that the Japanese have with us in America. One other tweet that also went fairly viral was this friend across the Pacific saying, everyone in Japan knows Take Me Home, Country Roads by John Denver. We cover it all the time, so I hope our American friends can appreciate it. And again, the thread, which I just have to share, has all kinds of hilarious stuff. Here's Country Road. And so, my friends,
all right,
we've been to the...
All right, that's enough.
I love it, man.
I just wanted to share that good news of hope. I mean, Harry Truman made a hard decision in a hard time, and here we are, you know, a little bit over a half a century, witnessing the fallout. And who would have known that Japanese individuals would be playing "Take Me Home, Country Road" renditions? You know what I'm saying? And they were our mortal enemies half a century ago. So I say that the whole motto of peace through strength is real. And right now it's time for be strong. In the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a time for love, there's a time for peace, there's a time for war. Here we are. We're in the time for war. And I hope everybody can find a little solace and harden their heart a little bit to stick with our team and stop turning on ourselves and figure out how we can move forward and see that other side where maybe some people in Iran will be singing Country Road one day, you know.
So I'm playing the Midland City Senior Center tomorrow at 0. If y'all got nothing to do, and I mean y'all come to Midland City, Alabama tomorrow at 09:45. If you show up there, I'll be playing. And my buddy I put out a playlist today. His name is Charles Ziegler. He's the fire chief for the Newton volunteer fire department. He's been around a few years. He's a very seasoned individual, and he's the chief of the fire department there. And he's the head guitar picker for my group. I mean, he's good on that guitar, man. He can pick it out, baby. But he is going to come and play with us tomorrow, and we're going to have a good time. But the main thing that he said was, I put in the playlist, he was going to play The Wagon Tracks Around the Church Are Gone. That is a bluegrass song that he wants to sing. I couldn't find that song. Okay. I couldn't. And when I'm making a playlist and I would go online and I'm looking for it, I couldn't find it. So I just, as a placeholder, I put in there Wagon Wheel, right, by Darius Rucker.
Yeah.
So I get a text
Rock
from
me,
him.
mama, like a wagon wheel.
Right.
I love that song.
So I get a text from him, and he says, I love the playlist you put together. Thank you so much. He goes, I'm just not quite sure about that Wagon Wheel song. If you're going to sing it, you can. But I promise you, brother, I will never sing that song. And I was like, I sent him back. No, it's actually a placeholder for the song that you're gonna sing. But it was great, dude. Yeah. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. So if y'all thinking about me tomorrow morning at 9:45, I'll be in Midland City, Alabama. I'll be there for, I don't know, there'll probably be 20 people there, and there'll be 4 or 5 of us, and we're going to be singing some songs and playing guitars and stuff.
Love it.
And just really having a good time and entertaining, living the good life. Ray's going to be doing it soon when he retires, you know.
Yep.
Right?
You know it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I just want to say, Ray, Nate, thanks so much for doing this and hanging out. It's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun.
Man, thanks for having us.
I've been having camera problems. I've been having to switch from my laptop camera to the other camera. I spent a lot of money for this camera. Oh, look, y'all got to say Lawyer Penny coming in.
What's up, Penny?
Hey, hold on. We gotta
boss lady.
We gotta use an excuse to say, hey, if the Popo's chasing you, call Penny A. Cox, Esquire, 334-200-6222. Oh my gosh. And also here's our donors, our donor status. Thank you so much for those that keep this thing going. We've got a Marshall in the Middle interview next Monday. You gotta watch that. It's gonna be really good. It's with this guy calls himself Face Man with the VCC Face Man, Veterans Chat Center or something like that. I'm not quite sure exactly, but I was on their podcast a couple weeks ago. It was a lot of fun. And so he's gonna be on the Marshall in the Middle. Heroes I Know. We're gonna get his story told. So.
Nice.
All right, so Ray, close us out, man.
All right, man. Hey, it was fun. I hope all you guys are still paying attention to your local elections. Do not let them escape you. The most important thing that you could do in your area is pay attention to who you're electing. All right. That's all I got, man. I hope everybody's living in peace and living in harmony. Love you guys. And we're out.
Marshall in the Middle.
Other one in the